I don't want to go to the grocery store until I've eaten every fucking piece of food that's in my kitchen because I'm so sick of seeing shit in there and being like, I don't have any food. You have food. You have, open the fucking, eat the beans that have been sitting there for the last 6 months. Hi, I'm Oliver Chase. Welcome back to my channel. I'm an NSFW content creator here in Los Angeles, California. Today I'm going to talk about my history with bipolar depression. So, if you don't know much about bipolar disorder, there's two usually. Bipolar 1, which is mania, bipolar depression, which is 2. I have 2. I'm sad all the time. Not necessarily. Definitely not now, because I'm medicated. I didn't get my diagnosis until I was 27 years old. Can you believe it? Imagine going 27 years of your life always knowing something's different or wrong and not knowing what the problem is or how to fix it. But knowing something's wrong with you. We're gonna go all the way back to 7th grade. 7th grade is when, looking back now, is like the first telltale signs. Don't get me wrong, like I was a very emotional kid growing up. I could not sleep. I had night terrors. I was really energetic, would get really sad, would have outbursts, energetic outbursts, and then I would just like completely lose it and fall apart emotionally. But the first real thing that stuck out looking back as an adult now is when I was in 7th grade, I had something that happened to me that looking back now makes sense. And what happened was I'm at school, being a kid, doing normal shit, and then for some reason, I get really sad, inaudible, I can't talk, and then I start just getting really emotional, I start crying. I go to the principal's office where they kind of like sit me by myself, and then I just start crying. And I mean crying for like hours. Inconsolable, inaudible, mute, can't talk. 7th grade is kind of where I realized that, holy shit, something's really different about me. And like, in 7th grade, looking back, there's this part of me that like had an ego complex about this. Almost like there's something about me that is so different that makes me so much greater than everybody because I have the capacity to, I don't know, I just always look like I'm on the outside looking in and like I see things differently and I act differently and I'm not like everybody else. Almost like narcissistic. To be completely honest with you, it's like it was like the coping that I was dealing with feeling like such an outcast all the time was me basically trying to cope with the fact that I was just like, had like such a much more difficult time dealing with my issues than everyone else did. 7th grade, I have to go to the principal's office because I'm so inconsolable that I start crying and losing my shit for 3-4 hours. My mom has to come get me and take me home. And I don't know if I stayed home 1 or 2 days or what, but that shit was crazy. How has bipolar depression affected me for as long as I can remember? It's been the same. Honestly, it's been the same. I've always felt like I don't know how to make friends. I've always felt like I have struggles with interpersonal relationships with friends and family in general. I will experience hot and cold streaks where there's days where I feel like I'm the best thing that's ever fucking happened and I'm on a roll and no one can fuck with me. But then most of the time, because it's bipolar depression where I only experience bouts of hypomania followed by long bouts of depression, I'll have that moment and then I'll be searching for that moment again, always being depressed, being like, no, I can get back to that. Like, where's that moment? Where's that moment? And then it's spiraling. So intrusive thoughts are another part of bipolar depression for me. So I'll get obsessive with mistakes I make and experience these bouts of obsessive compulsive looping that I just can't get out of. And I usually have to do something about it. And the way that I would do something about it is if it was any mistake that I made, I would have to like belligerently confess like to what I've done and feel extremely guilty and feel like I'm the worst person ever. Like, I'm such a fucking piece of shit, and I'm unforgivable. And that happened multiple times growing up too. But to backtrack just a touch back to 7th grade, that little emotional breakdown thing that happened almost every year from 7th grade on, at least once a year. And then as I got older, to like 17, 18 years old, it happened a little more consistently, to the point that it was like very obvious that there was something different and wrong. 8th grade happened again. I had another one of those moments. 9th grade, I think there was so much going on that I didn't have one out externally, but there was definitely signs there too. Like, what is bipolar depression? Well, for me, it is, again, impulsivity, looping obsessive thoughts, having little to no energy in things that you should enjoy. For me, it's like sports and music and, movies or playing video games and stuff like that, like normal kid stuff. And like you just lose interest in that shit. It feels like the best way to describe how bipolar depression affects me with my interests, essentially, simply, is if there's a basketball game today and I'm experiencing what feels like a depressive episode, it will feel like, what's the point of watching the game? Because someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, points are going to be scored. This has happened a million times before. There's nothing interesting about it. It's just like, oh, people are going to win, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. There's going to be points scored. Like, I've seen this a million times. There's nothing interesting about it. But like, that's every aspect of my life. Like, going to the gym, oh, I'm going to go lift weights, burn some calories, come home and take a shower. I've done that a million times. That's so boring. That's so fucking boring. You know what I mean? Like, that's one way that it presents. Feeling like an outcast, like you don't fit in. I would, like I said earlier, like I would get these bouts of like feeling like I'm like this fucking god sometimes. I'll feel like I'm the best thing that's ever happened to the universe, and I'm meant for this great, like, just grandiosity or whatever the fuck they call it. I would have that, and it would just be a front, like, because obviously, like, I have serious issues, and like I'm so different and I'm trying to cope. But I didn't get my diagnosis until I was 27 years of age. In my early 20s, I had a breakdown. I was 22 or 23 years old, and I went to therapy for the first time in my adult life, I would say. Cat alert. And it was kind of crazy, man, because all of this stuff was coming up for me. And it was so bad that the person that took me in, like the intake person, suggested very strongly that I do EMDR therapy based on the different traumas that I had kind of expressed. No mention of a mental illness, though. They were just like, yeah, I think EMDR therapy would be helpful for you to kind of compartmentalize and process some of these very deep traumas that you've experienced. So we started trying to do that. There was some progress, but again, being like unmedicated, like routine in terms of bipolar depression is a really hard thing. I would go to therapy every week. I wouldn't like miss therapy sessions, but in the sessions, like I remember the therapist trying to get me to focus on like the EMDR thing. If you know anything about EMDR therapy, it's basically eye desensitization, REM, motion REM. Basically, you're activating like in the eyes REM sleep in while you're conscious, and basically what it does is it compartmentalizes and processes trauma while you're awake, and then throughout the week you deal with it more, and you just do that for however many times you need to until you experience growth in processing these fucked up things that happen to you. And believe you me, I have some fucked up things that have happened to me. Woo! Anyways, where even am I right now? 22 years old. I start going to therapy, experiencing some growth, in and out of relationships, in and out of doing what I should be doing with my life. Mind you, I graduated college with honors. I'm a first generation college graduate. So it's like all this is happening and I'm super high functioning and I'm able to knock things out of the park, but I'm also fucking completely and totally emotionally destroyed the entire time. And like, it wasn't until I was like 26, going on 27. I had been seeing a therapist for about a year and a half. And we had been working, and I always thought to myself, hey, with enough therapy, enough energy, enough hard work, I'll be able to knock this shit out. I can do it. I can do it. I just need to continue to work on therapy and work on myself and do this and do that. And like, you experience these small steps, but there's a big difference between experiencing steps and dealing with trauma and experiencing actual like mental health from from being properly medicated from a chemical deficiency in your brain that you can't do anything about. Because even if I had processed all of my trauma, I still have a chemical deficiency that makes it harder for me to process emotions, deal with interpersonal relationships, impulsivity control, obsessive looping thoughts, lack of energy and interest in things that I usually like. Like all of that shit are things that I deal with that I don't have to deal with now because I'm properly medicated and I do therapy and I focus on other aspects of a treatment plan, right? So I got addicted to fucking alcohol. This was after being medicated and diagnosed. However, this therapist at 26 going on 27 told me they're stepping away from the practice. And it was devastating because I trusted this person and it was something that was really hard for me to take. But they told me, they said, before I step away, I just wanted to have a conversation with you based on like the year plus of us working together. Some of the things I've realized, and I think you should possibly think about seeing a professional for further evaluation. And I said, okay, give it to me. He said, based on our time in the last 6 months to a year, I would diagnose you, my professional diagnosis would be chronic PTSD. And that threw me for a loop. It fucked me up because I was like, chronic PTSD, is that like, that means I like, you know, I'm fucked, I'm screwed. And he said, well, no, chronic is just 6 to 12 months. Like if you've been dealing with PTSD for more than this amount of time, then it would be considered chronic. That doesn't mean it's terminal. It's just chronic. You've been having it for an extended amount of time. I would also say it's complex PTSD. Complex chronic PTSD or whatever. Chronic blah, 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 blah. Basically, a shitload of layered, nuanced trauma stacked up upon itself that I've had for years. It was probably since I was a kid. And then, after he said that would be my first formal diagnosis, and he said the second thing would be, because of that PTSD, I'm noticing some bipolar tendencies. Now, I'm not saying you're bipolar, but I'm saying that you have bipolar tendencies. And I wasn't even registering the bipolar thing. I was like, well, I probably don't have that, but I probably have PTSD, which makes sense because we've been dealing with this trauma and I've had the trauma for a long time. From a textbook standpoint, the time that I've had this trauma makes sense that I would have PTSD. And here's the thing. PTSD presents itself as a slew of different mental illnesses. So it makes sense. I was like, this is devastating, but this makes sense. It's something I can fix and cure. So I take his advice. I go and I see a professional. I go and I see a psychiatrist. 5-minute conversation. Psychiatrist diagnoses me with bipolar depression. Now I'm diagnosed clinically. And it pissed me the fuck off because here I am, not even 27 years old, yet, almost. I had a therapist that I trusted for a year and a half. Basically, he wasn't a full-on psychologist yet or therapist. Like, he wasn't licensed fully. He was on his way. But I believed him, and I think his assessment was mostly accurate at the time. But at the time, I thought it was the truth. He diagnosed me with chronic PTSD with bipolar tendencies. She talks to me for 5 minutes and diagnoses me with bipolar depression just like that. And I'm like, what the fuck? You don't know me. Diagnoses me with bipolar. Don't even know if at the time, I didn't even know if she diagnosed me with bipolar depression 1 or 2. She was just like, oh yeah, you're bipolar. And I was like, what the fuck? Because of the insomnia, I can't sleep. How do you feel when you can't sleep? I feel terrible. I struggle with friendships. I have too much energy when I'm not supposed to and not enough energy when I am. I experience hot and cold streaks. She clocked my ass. Probably in like 3 minutes of talking, she was like, okay, yeah, you're bipolar. Diagnosed me with Zoloft and Lamictal. I'm pissed. How dare this fucking lady tell me I'm fucking bipolar? You don't know me. But I begrudgingly go and I get the meds and I take them. Needless to say, she was right. She was completely right. I upped my dosage throughout the next few months, and that was it. It felt like at 27 years old, my life started. It was crazy because the looping thoughts, intrusive thoughts went away. Feeling like I don't fit in went away. My ability to just have mental clarity and not be overly emotional about how things affect and impact me stabilized. I felt like I just had regular energy and interest in things, and it was really crazy to me that I didn't lose that interest in things like I used to. No, you're not having my breakfast. I was still deeply ADHD, which I'm also diagnosed and medicated for, which is also very helpful. But it was the answer. And it took me a long time to realize that I'm not just traumatized and have PTSD. Like, I actually have a mental illness that would be present if I had the most perfect, beautiful upbringing with a great mother and a father. Like, even if it wasn't as intense, it would still be there. Because I've been medicated now for 4 years. And I feel the exact same way I did when I first started taking it, which is I feel like my life has begun. I'm so blessed and grateful that I was diagnosed and medicated. I love my diagnosis. I love my medication. I love that I was blessed to find the answer for what was wrong. And I'm still in therapy. Like, I still have a lot of shit that needs to be worked on. And I'm 31. But thank God, am I right? Thank fucking God I got blessed enough to be able to go through and get the answers that I've like not had. And like, I'm so blessed because I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people don't get that. You know what I mean? So that's my story. I only touched on a few things, honestly. There's way more to this, but Let me know what your journey is if you have a mental illness and how it presents for you, and if you found help. Because this shit's real, dude. I'll be the first to say, like, mental illness is real. Some people do need medication. There's a million ways to deal with a mental illness. For me, that was my answer. It's not for everybody. Some people can find healing in other ways. I'm not one to judge or tell you how to live your life or what to do with it, but that's what worked for me. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening. Till next time.